To those that have never really considered someone else first. To all of the people who feel the need to post what they do in their lives instead of using the phone to call someone who cares. To all those that have daily time to be on Facebook or Twitter or TimeHop or Pinterest, but can't remember the last time they listened to a new album front to back after waiting for its release and still don't know why they are a flake with no developed personality past age 17. To artists who wait tables to have extra time for their supposed art, but still can't wait to get off and complain about work as if they are hard-working, blue-collar folk waiting for the weekend. To all those who write checks with their mouths that their actions and lives couldn't possibly cash. To dick swingers. To all those who only help others when someone is watching. To all those who are only productive when someone else is watching. To all those who blame others before looking inward. To musicians that tell us their name, instead of letting the music speak for itself until we remember their name. To Family Guy. To Iggy Azalea, to politicians, to those who let their beliefs stop them from being a moral, honest person of integrity, to those who have advice for others but haven't realized they will die one day in this book of their life, which they perpetuate into boredom, to first world complainers. To people who care about followers and subscribers more than being worth following or subscribing to those who condemn others before considering their influences and pressures, to those who would ride such understanding in others in order to avoid perjury or self-reflection and personal responsibility, to the arrogant parents whose mistake became their life worth, to all the people whose ambition and horse-blinder vision lets them trample lives and possibilities of connections while they are young with energy, yet still have the gall to be sad or lonely after 30. To all of the many people who wish their lives were more romantic, but miss the romance present because it doesn't look like the version in their heads. To liars. To those who get money but don't know what they'd spend it on. To all the people who can't answer the question, what makes you happy, but argue any philosophical standpoint in any conversation, ever. To Dr. Dre. To Beats headphones. To the Beatles. To Kevin Hart. To Maury. To reality TV. To UFC advertising. To all the people who say nothing can be done after having tried nothing. To false promisers. To those who critique someone's point of view out of insecurity or the excitement of someone seeing them make a counterpoint. To all the adults whose lives simply break down to, look at me, ma, look at me, pa. To people who think not changing yourself is a great thing. To cowardly rappers, mostly all of them, who lamely make diss tracks for attention today, rather than to actually insult a bad artist in the hopes that they will quit. To cowards. To any messenger who doesn't want to be killed for bad news but wants praise for good news. To all the people who hate when others are certain ways but can't recognize when they encounter someone that meets their special criteria. To those who miss the good parts of life because they are busy coping with the bad. To those who think right matters more than nice. To anyone in the boxing community that supported Money Mayweather his entire career when it says in his name that he doesn't care about a good or fair fight, but still bought the Pacquiao versus Mayweather fight and had the gall to be disappointed afterwards. To Drake, to Johnny Depp, to the thousands of unfunny comedians with specials on Netflix who haven't even attended open mics in the triple digits of times. To GameStop, forcing 3 Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty games on people each year. To any gamer who thinks the point of playing a game is to beat it. To any well-read person who reads in order to be seen as well-read. To Will Ferrell. To Facebook. To anyone with a pet horse that still thinks their horse likes being ridden. To weed glorifiers who killed their brain cells long before they had a good point about weed or anything. To cops who bust people that hurt nobody but themselves. To new parents whose kids get presents, but whose mas and pas get ignored while they act like teens at 40 during Thanksgiving. To racists, to all the people that claim they don't see color. To people with Phoenix rebirth tattoos, but no change in their personality to reflect a rising from the ashes. To terrorists, to patriots, to grown men who like college football but never played past high school. To Maroon 5, to J.K. Rowling, to Peter Jackson, to all the people who think monogamy or cheating are normal, to those who use statistics as explanations for their sheepish behavior, to fans of Kurt Cobain born after he died, to grown men that start altercations in a social setting like a frat boy but were never hit in the face once in their life, to anyone that thinks how cool or how right or how much attention they got matters, did matter, or will ever matter, to artists who think they will live on in their work after their worm food, to people who never apologize and simply let time do the talking for them, to all the people that have a huge problem being wrong and explain why they thought their wrong thought every time in the hopes that people will at least respect how they get to their faulty conclusion, but never really even pause at the fact that they were wrong and let it seep in for future adjustment. To complainers, to ignorant elders, to disrespectful youths, to anyone whose idea of happiness impedes anyone else's idea of happiness, murderers, rapists, etc. To all those that go out each weekend looking for the best time ever. To all the people that care more about the plan for fun than they do the other people involved in the plan. To The Simpsons, post-season 12 or 13-ish. To shepherds with an audience and no moral compass. To anyone who ever cared about any Kardashian. To Bruce Jenner. To the creators of the boring and unrealistic icon Superman. He's never even been fun or had a good message. To people that give words power undeservedly. To those who put up Lord. To Bill Maher. To fast food chains in low-income areas. To victims of fast food chains that can't think. To all those that should have died by natural selection, yet were kept around till they had kids instead of just enjoying their lives and dying with their bad genes. To wife beaters. To Uggs. To wives that go back to being beaten. To all the people who glorify their struggle and aren't Nelson Mandela. To people who only invest in those human traits which cannot stand the test of time. To problem solvers who don't try critically thinking. To critical thinkers who would panic in an emergency. To men who have a family but can't beat another man of average build in a hand-to-hand fight. To Al Sharpton. To Benjamin Franklin. To people who call hundreds Ben Franks. To the music made with beat programs. To DJs. To all the people that resign themselves to never being as happy as during the good old days, instead of making the present a good old time. To people who change their core desires and operations in conjunction with financial fluctuation. To those who know they could try harder and don't. To all the folks who think they're a pioneer but were born 1990 and post. To selfie takers, to selfie viewers, to selfie sticks, to iPhones and the monsters they are creating. To Steve, not a genius Jobs, to Michael Fassbender, to Disney, to Marvel and Scarlett Johansson, to anyone who adapts a movie without caring for the original franchise's integrity before sales, or adapts a movie on someone's life after they have died to make up a messiah, all to earn some Ben Franks. To people who believe in the Illuminati. To those who don't realize that the government operates on many of the same standards as a gang. To warmongers. To neo-Nazis stuck out of time and reality, to Kickstarter, to people who say they work hard instead of working too hard to have the energy to say that, to all the people who hate their loved one but will die in a bed next to them, to all those who work a job they hate their whole life and regret and then die, to all the people who wish to die in a bed, to those who never try conquering their fears, to all the people who waste time being scared of and trying to understand the only infinitely inescapable and unexplainable truth of our existence, the after end. To dwellers and dwellings that impede natural selection. To men, with a house, a car, 2.5 children, and a poker night, all achieved via promotion to management in a corporation they joined before they dropped out of high school. To victims who willfully remain ignorant. To baggage carriers, to business school, to all the people who would be out of a job if we went back to barter and trade, bankers, stockbrokers, etc. To old friends who feign interest in rekindling. To people who always have something better to do. To anyone who paid to watch 50 Shades of Grey. To women who say, gotta use what you got, as an explanation for using their sex appeal to achieve undeserved dues. To men who let the aforementioned happen instead of just slamming their dick in a drawer. To the many sexual deviants who masquerade as homosexual because they don't like the way some members of the opposite sex have treated them. To the lazy. To Nintendo for lowering their standards in order to compete financially. To Hayao Miyazaki for working with Disney. To Star Wars for selling to Disney. To those who buy into the Disney vault. And to Disney again. To Sylvester Stallone. To all those that cave to the pressures of petty societal judgments and apologize for exercising their freedom of speech. To the weak for inventing shaming. To those who categorize shame and guilt and feeling bad as bad things and further the acceptance of ignorance and a weaker future for the human race. To all the fish givers who don't teach fishing. To all those fucking around with oil. To all those fucking around with nuclear material. To all those fucking around with privatizing water. To Coke. To Wall Street. To the inventor of the gun. To everyone trying to reinvent the word faggot just so they can say it as if it really matters. To shock jocks. To those who thrive on chaos in the lives of others. To Chris Will and his song Tomorrow, look it up, and any of his future attempts at song making. To those who are selfish before analyzing the differences between selfishness and selflessness, and will remain so without wavering until they drop. To those who label things as bad or good before having any experience with the subject at hand. To prisons. To men who are against men innately. To Comedy Central. To E. To the news. To soda and other first world eventual ailments sold to kids. To the conscientious ignorer. To those with unfounded hatred. To all of the people who carry hatred over to a new situation. To professors who profess for attention and could care less about educating and never profess that. To meth heads. To actual addicts. To boys who try to live out porn fantasies with their girls. To girls who lost their virginity before graduating high school simply to have done so. To colleges for making themselves a business. To all those that made someone go to college, the higher education, when there was no precedent for it other than the possibility. To irresponsible pilots. To postmen who snap. To mama's boys. To daddy's girls. To all those who use abbreviations in speech when there was ample time to use entire words but they wanted to sound cool. To those who sacrifice happiness in order to maybe, someday, feel cool. To Alcoholics Anonymous and NAMBLA and their teachings. To the Pope or any priest that we can't exhume. To Jesus' followers that preach his omnipotence as much or more than his teachings. To any follower of a Messiah who preaches their omnipotence as much or more than their teachings. To pupils who don't study the roots of their genre. To comedy fans who haven't listened to Lenny Bruce at Carnegie Hall at least. To boxing fans who haven't seen the 18 of Mike Tyson's first 20 fights that end in a first or second round knockout. To visual artists who have never even watched Bob Ross's show once. To all the people whose only goal is to get money and they struggle with it. To those who may come across something inspirational and show their friends before letting it inspire them into thought or change first. To those with ill-gotten gains. To those with unjustifiable means for shallow ends. To the prideful. To the guilty. To you with your ego. You are bad at existing and worse at coexisting.